The smell of burning paper. That is how I discovered my sister had betrayed me. I saw smoke in the alley near our fence and I ran. I found a pile of small papers. They had names and numbers. One paper had our address and a rent list. I touched it and my hands shook. How could my sister lie to me? She gave my lunch to a man last week. She said he was poor. I had pity. I shared my food. Now I held proof that this man owned the whole block. I felt strange. Did I help the owner and not the beggar? I felt both angry and afraid. My heart beat fast. I ran back to our home. In our small room my sister was quiet. She looked like she had a secret. I put the paper on the table and asked her, "Who is he?" "My name is Omar. I live on the same block my whole life. The neighborhood is full of noise. People sell tea near the corner. Children play under the big tree. Our house is small. My sister, Hannah, works as a cleaner. I am a student and I sell small things on the street. One day I had a small lunch. It was bread and tea. I planned to eat it at noon. I saw a thin man by the fence. He sat on a low step. He looked tired. His clothes were old. He looked hungry. Hannah said, "Give him your food. Be kind." I did. I gave him my bread. He smiled and said, "Thank you, young man." I felt warm inside. I thought I had done a good thing. The next day, Hannah told me she found papers near the gate. She laughed and said, "This man has many houses. He is quiet. He likes to stay in the shadows." I said, "A beggar with houses? That is strange." Hannah shrugged. She said, "Maybe people hide their life. People hide money and truth." I kept that idea in my head. I started to watch the alley. The man came sometimes. He had a small bag. He sat like a poor tenant. He never spoke much. He did not beg loudly. One afternoon, some men from the block argued. I heard words about rent and property. A neighbor said, "The landlord will cut the water if we do not pay." My stomach turned. I thought of our small room and our worry. If the stranger was rich, why was the block in trouble? I told Hannah, "We must learn more." She looked at me with a sad face. She said, "Be careful, Omar. Some secrets hurt people." That night I could not sleep. I remembered the look the man gave when I gave him bread. It was not hunger only. It had something like relief. I wanted to ask him one question. I wanted to know his name. I decided to follow him tomorrow. But what if I was wrong? What if I broke the peace of the block? I felt the fear and the urge together. The next morning a footstep came from the dark alley. I followed. The man turned a corner. I almost lost him. Then I saw him enter a gate that looked rich and new. My mouth went dry. I went closer and saw a small sign. It had a name and a number. I read it and my hands shook again. Who was he truly? I stepped back when a voice called my name from behind the gate. My name is Omar. I stood behind a shrub and listened. The gate had a small bell. The man rang it. A woman answered. Her voice was calm. The man bowed like a guest. He walked into a house with clean windows and a small garden. I smelled flowers from there. My heart felt like a drum. I returned home and told Hannah. She was quiet. She said, if this man owns a house, he will not live like a beggar here. He may have a plan. The next day, the block had a problem. The landlord of our building was missing. People called him on the phone. No one could find him. A loud noise came from the main street. Men began to shout. They had a dispute about the water and the property taxes. A tenant named Mr. Rao said, if we do not pay, the bill will close our store. I felt fear for our family. Hannah said to me, we must go to the community office. We need help. I went with her. The office was small. Papers were on the desk. The clerk looked tired. He said, we have no money for the block now. The owner has not paid the taxes. My stomach dropped. I thought of the stranger and the paper list. Was he the owner? Why did he not pay? I wanted to tell the clerk about the man I saw. But I was a child in their eyes. They did not listen to me. I left the office and walked slowly on the block. A group of neighbors crowded around a small board. I read a note. It said, all tenants must meet the owner at noon by the clock tower. My breath stopped. The time was near. I ran home to tell Hannah. She packed a small bag. She said, we will go. Do not speak too loud. Do not make trouble. At the clock tower many people stood quietly. The stranger stood too. He had his old coat. His face was calm. He looked at each person. When he spoke his voice was small but clear. He said, I know you. I am the owner of many houses here. There was a silence. People began to shout at him. One man cried, you lived like a beggar and let us struggle. The stranger raised his hand and said, listen. I will explain. I wanted to run to him and ask, why did you hide? Why did you let us suffer? But Hannah held my arm. She whispered, wait. We will hear him. Then we will know. The stranger opened a small leather folder. He pulled out our block's rent list. He looked at us and then at me. His eyes found mine and he said, young man, you fed me once. You were kind. Come here. My legs moved before my head. I walked to him while the crowd watched. What will he say to me in front of everyone? My name is Omar. I stood near the stranger. The light hit his face. Up close I saw small scars on his hands. He looked tired but proud. He smiled at me. He said, you gave me food. I never forgot that. People around us started to shout again. A neighbor cried, why did you not help us? Did you hide money? The stranger held the rent list and said, I did not hide money. I lost the papers once. My name was taken. I was not the man they thought I was. He told a story. He said he had a family long ago. He lost his papers in a fire. He left the city and came back to the block in a new life. He could not prove his name. The court made a mistake. Someone else became the landlord. He had no papers to fight. So he lived like a tenant to stay close. He watched the block. He watched the people he loved. He paid small debts in secret. He tried to help when he could. People listened, but they were angry and hurt. Hannah stepped forward and said, "He fed the poor here for months. He fixed pipes at night. He did small jobs to save money. He did not show off." The stranger then opened a folder with real papers. He had a new document. It was a clean note with a bank mark. He showed the date and the stamp. He said, "This is my proof. I worked with a lawyer. I found some old friends." The truth came back. A quiet fell over the crowd. The man who had been the landlord walked up red-faced. He had a paper in his hand too. He tried to shout, but when the stranger showed the true papers, the landlord's face dropped. People began to see the truth. Tears came to some eyes. The stranger looked at me and said quietly, "You were kind. You shared your lunch with a stranger. You did not ask for reward. You did not know who he was. You were right to be kind." I felt my face hot. I wanted to run and hug him. But the crowd was loud again. The landlord said, "You stole our rent and never paid it before." The stranger said, "I did not steal. I lost my name. I stayed to see my block. I tried to make things right when I could." A neighbor shouted, "Then why not tell us earlier?" The stranger looked at the neighbor and said, "I was afraid my papers would be taken again. I stayed hidden to plan a fair return. I wanted to pay back every tenant. I needed time and a quiet place to work." Hannah whispered, "He paid small bills, fixed the taps, left food. He did not want thanks. I thought of the day I gave him my bread. He had a full life, but he sat with us. He showed me that people can hide truth. He showed me that kindness can find its way back." But as he spoke, a man in a dark coat walked away from the crowd. He had watched us. He pocketed his phone and looked hard at the stranger. I knew this man. He was the person who had the original papers. He had a plan that could change everything. He moved toward the gate with a slow step. I wanted to follow him, but Hannah held me close. We all watched the man leave. What would he do with his phone and the papers he still had? "My name is Omar." The man with the phone left and then came back. He had a small smile. He said he would check the bank record. He walked to the clerk and they spoke. After a while the clerk read the paper and said, "The case is closed. The true owner is here." The crowd quieted. The stranger, the man we knew as poor, was the owner. He had lost his name, but he found it again. The man who tried to keep the papers hung his head. He said sorry and left. The stranger then moved through the block. He helped the tenants. He paid the bills he could. He asked Hannah to help manage the houses. She said yes. The block changed slowly. People who were angry met for tea. Neighbors fixed the fence together. I learned a lesson I will keep. Kindness matters, even when the person seems small. A small act like sharing bread can become a great change. Truth can hide. People can pretend to be poor or rich. But a good heart shows in small things. I still walk the block. I still sell small items. Now I see the owner sometimes. He smiles at me and waves. When a new person comes to the fence, I give my food and a warm word. I know that day made our community better. I know that a single kind act can flip the world. Will you be kind when you see someone who needs food?